What I think is really special and is really cool about the way we learn sort of knowledge in the Foundation Year program, I suppose, is how it kind of puts all these works and all these thinkers into relation with one another. How because you sort of start at something of a beginning and end at something of the modern day, you kind of understand how these ideas develop over time. And I don't think you can really sort of have the same perspective if you haven't learned them in that way, which I think is really wonderful.
It was amazing. It was probably the greatest year so far of my education. The curriculum is designed so intentionally, and everything that you read is woven together so everything makes sense. I feel like I learned so much, not just from like an academic standpoint, but from more of like a life standpoint.
Within the first few days of having started my first year of university, I was already saying that deciding to partake in FIP and come to King's was the best decision I'd ever made, and everything I needed coming out of high school. And even now, I still very much stand behind those statements.
I met lots of people who were excited to learn, and that made me excited too. It's really clear that the people who facilitate FIP really care about it and believe that it's valuable. People want to be there, people want to be reading, and people want to be learning and improving.
There is something really wonderful about how you can have a remarkable amount of focus on one thing when you're doing the Foundation Year program. You can really put in the time because that one class is taking up almost 4 classes of space, theoretically. You just get to really focus on sort of your learning and the work you're producing in the program.
This author, Ibn Hazm, who wrote this text called The Ring of the Dove. But it was essentially this Middle Ages love text that talked about what it's like to fall in love, what it's like to love. It was one of those texts that you read and you went, oh wow, there are things that exist in this world that is so transcendental that something that it was written 900 years ago is still so applicable to our lives now.
King's is a school of community, but just, within the lecture hall, the material we're learning about is really teaching students how to sympathize, going through it with your fellow students, being so connected and involved with your tutors, professors, guest lecturers. You really are learning how to dare to connect with others. And so, like I said, I was in love with it for sure.
If you email your tutor, they will respond. So I was in touch with my tutors, and I appreciated that I wasn't just sending essays out into the void. I was getting them back with not just a mark, but also with the same detailed feedback that I received throughout the year. So that was rewarding.
I could read something that was written so long ago and then apply it to my own personal life problems and get something out of it. And I feel like that's true for a lot of the texts that we read.
I found it really helpful to reach out to people who were also going through the same things, and to people who had sort of gone through all the same things up until this point as well. I do think that's another thing that the Foundation Year program does do really well, is it has a wonderful sense of community. I think one of the things that I find really eye-opening is just how much sort of the concerns that we face as people haven't changed. It's really remarkable when you see sort of an ancient thinker dealing with very similar, very human concerns.
It makes you constantly question why our society is the way it is, why we think the way we do. And it constantly calls into question our prejudices and our personal beliefs and make us think outside of what we know, which is pretty amazing.